Hi everybody, I'm Rachael England. I'm one of the string teachers that teaches for the Whole Music Hub, and welcome to week 10, day 4 of Sing for Whole. So I'm here today with my violin and a little friend here. He's a bit of a musical diva and likes to be anywhere really where there's an instrument. So would you like to say hello to everybody? What was that? So to everybody that doesn't understand doggy language, I think he just said to me, my name's not Lucky, you're supposed to be calling me my stage name, and my stage name is Woofgang. Is that right, Woofgang? Say hello to everybody again. So when you've quite finished, I can get on with the video. Excuse me, you're very naughty. He's supposed to be big on his best behaviour, and he thinks this video is starring him and all about him, but it's not actually. It's about the next best thing other than singing dogs, and that's the violin. So I'm here to talk to you about the violin. Now, you may have seen one of our videos already back in week 2 from Mr. Lynch, who talked about the basics of the violin and some different kind of techniques that you can play on the violin. And today we're going to take that a little bit further, and we're going to talk about all the different styles of music that the violin can play and the different roles a violinist can have. So to me, the possibilities are absolutely endless. There's such a massive choice of music and musical styles to choose from that we would be here all day if I went through all of them. So I can't do that, so I'm just picking out a few. But first of all, we're just going to do a fun fact of the day. It's that this is a little bit different. It's a bit like a fun, gross fact of the day. So bear with me. What do cats, tennis, doctors, cows and violins all have in common? No idea? Well, once upon a time in the old days, and actually still today a little bit, violin strings, these things here, they used to be made out of catgut. But if you're sitting next to your cat watching this video, tell Fluffy not to worry, because actually no cats were harmed in the making of violin strings. In actual fact, catgut stands for cattle gut, and they used the intestines of cows and goats and things like that, dried them out on a line, stretched them and made violin strings, and still today we can use these, although not very often. They tend to be used in really early Baroque music. But if you were to go into hospital and you had an operation, the doctor or the surgeon would stitch you up with stitches that are made out of catgut. And tennis rackets, you know, the bits that you hit the ball with, that's made out of catgut. And harp strings, that's the instrument that you play like that. And I did read, although I have no idea if this is true, that sometimes dental floss was made out of catgut. So next time you go buy that, just check the ingredients and maybe leave that one on the shelf. So back to the violin. So the violin really is the closest instrument that we have to the human voice. I mean, it literally can sing, whether you're playing something quite sweet, something quite sad, something really upbeat, or something dead serious. The violin has the ability to evoke lots and lots of different moods. And to me, I always feel like, you know, you are telling a story when you play a piece of music, and you become the storyteller, and I think that's a really, really important job to have. So if you're a violinist, there's so many different roles and jobs and things that you can do with the violin. You can sit in the first or second violin section in a big symphony orchestra, or a smaller orchestra for a ballet or an opera or a West End musical, or maybe you're going to go and record with an orchestra for all those big blockbuster movies that you hear, or you could be a fiddle player in a band, which we will get to later, or just so many different things. Your daily job is never ever going to be the same. It's so varied. So the violin has been around for quite a few hundred years. It's a very old instrument, and over that time different styles of playing have emerged. You know, these days the violin can be played in almost any genre of music, and today violinists keep inventing new techniques and ways of playing to adapt to new styles of music. So you literally can produce a totally different sound with every different style that you play. So we're going to start with the orchestral violinist. In a big orchestra, the string section, which includes the double basses, the cellos, the violas, which is a bit like the violin, bigger and it has a lower pitch, and the first and second violins, and the string section basically take up half of the orchestra. So it's a really big section, a really big important section of an orchestra. Now the violins are, you know, they're pretty important, but we won't tell the cellos that. And they usually carry a lot of the main melodies. The violins in particular, you know, they have nice high melodies or low melodies, and the second violins sometimes copy, or they kind of do something a little bit different to the first violins. So also within the first violins, there's a really important violin, and you call that person the concertmaster or the leader of the orchestra. And with that job, you get to sit really close to the conductor, and the rest of the string section actually follow you. You lead them in the music, and you get to go on before the orchestra and take a bow. So it's really, really important. So the first piece of music I'm going to introduce you to is an orchestral piece called Land of Hope and Glory, and I'm just going to play you the very first section that kind of has the main tune. This is from a much bigger work called Pomp and Circumstance by an English composer called Edward Elgar. Now you might recognise this tune. It's used for tons of different things, from sporting anthems. In America they use it for graduation ceremonies all over the country. In this country we tend to use it for what we call last night of the proms concerts, particularly the big one at the Royal Albert Hall. But all the way through the summer there's orchestral concerts, usually all the way up and down the UK, from London to Yorkshire, usually in a muddy field in the rain. You will hear this song somewhere in the concert, and the concert usually finishes with a great big firework display, and it's really cool. So I want you to listen for the absolutely gorgeous, really smooth melody in the violin, and you should feel really nice and British and patriotic. Enjoy. the next style of playing that I want to introduce you to is that of the fiddle player. So a violin and fiddle is exactly the same instrument. There's no difference. The only difference is it's a completely different style of playing. And you know, in an orchestra, we've talked about that you have sections of violins, and even in smaller ensembles there tends to be quite a few violins who play together. And in fiddling there's usually only one fiddle player, sometimes twin fiddling, but it's usually kind of a solo feature. So violins and folk music kind of go together really like strawberries and ice cream, and you can be so much more free than in traditional classical music. You know, you can go up and down the violin, adding lots of extras and embellishments, and even improvising a little bit if you want to too. You can kind of make it up as you go along. So there's so many different styles of playing fiddle, from Irish jigs to lots of Celtic tunes that we might have heard in this country, to an American style of playing called bluegrass, and I suppose even something like country and western. And over the years, lots of bands have kind of featured fiddle style playing in their music. As early as actually in 1979, that's such a long time ago, there's a band called the Charlie Daniels Band who wrote an entire piece that featured the violin, and they called it The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and it goes like this. And the song goes on, and it just, there's so many different techniques that the violin uses, from kind of slides that come all the way down the violin to all kinds of things. And it's really, really cool. So maybe go on YouTube and have a listen to that. So for a long time in my life, I actually spent living in America. And whilst I was there, I got to learn a little bit of kind of fiddle tunes. I used to play and teach at lots of fiddle camps, which in the summers in America, they're really popular. And basically everybody that learns an instrument goes to one of these fiddle camps. And I absolutely love this style of playing, you know, from anything from fast notes to gorgeous slow melodies. And one piece I learned when I was over there is a piece called Ashokan Farewell by an American fiddle player called Jay Ungar, who's actually a bluegrass player himself. And he wrote this piece of music in the style of like a Scottish folk tune. And over there it's used in the summer at the end of these kind of summer camps as a final farewell to say goodbye to everybody, and it really is beautiful. So listen out for the lovely long melody, and imagine sitting somewhere watching the sunset with your ice cream and maybe even your cowboy hat on. the next style of music that I want to take you to is a more kind of jazzy music, really. So particularly at this time of year, if you're a violinist or if you're a professional violinist, you often spend lots of time going out in kind of small groups and playing what we call gigs for lots and lots of weddings and parties and functions and things like that, where particularly as a string quartet will go out, we play lots of music from something like this that you might know, which is Eine Kleine by Mozart. But often these days we get asked to play a little bit more kind of contemporary music, like background music, often something a little bit jazzy that maybe people can dance to. And so in a quartet you have a first violinist and a second violinist, and they're both pretty much as important as each other. And both very often have the tune at separate times. Maybe the first violinist has a higher melody and the second violinist slightly lower. So often when I go to a gig, I play with lots of different setups of musicians, from quartets to other type of bands as well, and often getting asked to play quite jazzy pieces. So I wanted to play you a piece called Georgia on My Mind. And for this, I didn't really have any music. Now, I'm not a jazz violinist, but I wanted to have a go at doing a little bit of improvising. So that's what I've done on this next piece. And it's not that hard on the violin. It's something that all you violinists out there should have a go at. It's quite easy because all the notes kind of lie under your fingers, and as long as it sounds okay, you can kind of make it up, and it just either works or sometimes it doesn't work. So have a listen to this next piece, Georgia on My Mind. So the violin has really taken off in the pop world thanks to things like YouTube, that's absolutely packed full of aspiring young pop violinists. And really, anytime you switch on your TV today and put something like The X Factor on, or The Voice, or any kind of chat show really that involves a singer or a pop group, you'll often find that those singers are being accompanied by a section of string players in the background. It's becoming more and more popular, and I think it's because strings can be used in so many different ways. We are so versatile. You know, we can be used as backing, we can be a much more prominent feature. There's a song in the charts at the moment called No Place I'd Rather Be by Clean Bandit that uses a violin. Or there's a song from quite a few years ago called Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. features an entire string section. They're really prominent with the melody the whole way through the song. There's so many different things that you can do with strings and so many different types of sounds that you can create. If you've been watching Song for Hull on a Friday, you will notice that as part of the band we have a string quartet, which is 2 violins, a viola and a cello. And the string quartet has been used in so many different ways in our songs, from slightly more prominent to having the melody behind the singer, and very often as an accompanying kind of feature to kind of make the sound much more rich and warmer and kind of boost it all up. And tomorrow's song, Heroes by David Bowie, does exactly that. It uses the strings as kind of an accompanying feature. So have a listen out for tomorrow, the beginning of the song, where the violins kind of have this driving kind of rhythmic quaver, which soon turns into a different feature which carries on throughout the whole song really. And it pretty much goes like that the whole way. In fact, the violins in particular, we hardly ever get a break. It's really, really tiring, and by the end of the song I certainly need a bit of a sit down and a cup of tea and a biscuit. So have a watch out for that tomorrow. So the violin is a multi-functional instrument. It can either stand out as a solo instrument, you can be part of an orchestra, part of a band, a fiddle player, you can blend in, you can basically do whatever you want with it to suit your own personality. So it's becoming more and more popular in the pop world, which means the violin will never be out of fashion. So keep practicing and you'll be guaranteed to be able to play your violin somewhere. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video through all the different types of things that the violin can do, and thank you for watching. Remember that there are many different resources on our website, hullmusicpub.com/singforhull, and don't forget to join in the big sing-along tomorrow at 1:30 on the Hull Music Service channel. So bye for now.